Captain Rick's voice thundered across the ship's command center, his disbelief echoing through every console and corridor. "They want us to drink what?" he bellowed, the incredulity in his voice mirrored by the stunned expressions of his officers. They had faced countless threats since joining the intergalactic stage: monstrous invasions, celestial anomalies, and unthinkable wars, but nothing had prepared them for this. Commander Voss cleared his throat, his eyes flickering nervously to the holographic display in front of him. "It's true, Captain," he said. "The reports from the Delore outpost confirm it. The Calvo Empire has developed a new form of hydroweaponry, fluid-based chemical agents, capable of devastating entire planets. They've already deployed it in several sectors. Entire civilizations gone. And now they've sent us an ultimatum." Rick's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched. "And that ultimatum is—" Voss hesitated, casting a glance at the flickering communications relay. The Calvo Emperor's message still glowed there, ominous and undeniable. "Surrender, or face total annihilation by hydrosimulation. They've already marked Earth as their next target." Silence fell across the room like a suffocating fog. The Calvo weren't just feared for their brutal conquests, they were infamous for their horrific innovations in bioweaponry. The idea of a liquid weapon that could corrupt and dominate on a molecular level had always seemed like dystopian fantasy. Until now. "They call it Occam Dominus," Voss continued, breaking the heavy silence. "It infiltrates any organic system and rewrites its DNA. Once it enters a planet's water supply, it spreads unstoppable. Every organism becomes something else. Something Calvo. We've seen it in action, sir. It doesn't just kill, it conquers." A murmur of dread passed through the officers like a cold wind. The Calvo didn't bluff. If they said they had a doomsday weapon, they had it tanned, they would use it. Rick leaned over the console, scanning the data, his brow furrowed deep with thought. "And they expect us to bend the knee, just like that." Voss gave a grim nod. "They're counting on it. They know Earth's strategic value, its resources, its networks. They assume we'll fold rather than face extinction." Rick stood, slowly, his broad frame casting a long shadow across the room. "They assume wrong." His voice was low, but resonant with defiance. "We're human, damn it. We've stood on the edge of extinction before, and we didn't flinch. We fought. We always fight." A ripple of approval stirred among the crew, but Voss remained stiff. "With respect, Captain, this isn't like anything we've faced. This weapon doesn't just end life, it rewrites it. Once it enters the atmosphere, we're not just dead, we're enslaved, transformed before we even know it." Rick turned toward the holographic image of Earth, floating serenely among the stars. He stared, silent, calculating. Traditional defenses wouldn't stop this. Their missiles, their barriers useless against a weapon that spread through every drop of water, every breath. They needed a new kind of defense. Something no one had dared consider. "Have we analyzed the substance?" he asked suddenly. "What? Do we know about its makeup?" Caught off guard, Voss blinked, then nodded. The Vanguard team recovered a sample from the Delore site. Science division's working on it. Early reports suggest it's composed of heavy water, engineered microbio agents, A&D nanites. It's water, Captain, but not any kind we've ever seen. It's stable until it comes into contact with living tissue. Rick's eyes sharpened. "Have they tested it on humans?" Voss paled. "Sir, with all due respect, we'd never get clearance to." "I didn't ask about ethics, Commander. I asked if it's been tested." Voss swallowed hard, then nodded reluctantly. "Unofficially. A small dose on isolated human tissue. The result, ... catastrophic. Mutation began almost instantly. The cells twisted into something unrecognizable. And that was from just a few drops." Rick leaned closer, eyes narrowed. "Just a few drops, huh?" "Yes, sir. But the real danger, is in how it spreads. It doesn't just infect, it propagates through the bloodstream like wildfire. It transforms. Rick grunted, absorbing the implications. What about other species? Have the Calvo used it on themselves? Unlikely, Voss replied. Their biology is too different. They're aquatic. They have resistance to most toxins, but I doubt even they fully understand the thing they've created. And then Rick's eyes flickered with something, a spark of possibility, insanity, or brilliance. What if? He started slowly. What if we didn't resist it? The command center erupted. Are you serious, Captain? Voss shouted. You're talking about inviting a bioweapon into our systems. It would kill us all. But Rick's mind was already racing ahead. Maybe, but maybe not. This isn't just a weapon, it's a tool. It changes what it touches. But into what? Something to serve the Calvo. What if we could change the outcome? What if we could reprogram it? Voss went pale. Sir, the only way to do that would be to let it inside a living host to interface as it assimilates. That would require volunteers, Rick finished. Men willing to take the risk. To let it in and try to fight it from the inside. The room fell into a stunned hush. Madness. Complete and utter madness. But also, possibly their only shot. There's a reason the Calvo haven't used it on themselves, Rick continued. They can't. They're immune, but they can't control it the way we might. They don't understand us. But we do. If we can survive the first exposure, we might be able to turn their weapon against them. And if we can't? Voss asked quietly. Rick's grin was feral. Then we give them one hell of a last stand. The officers looked between one another, the air electric with tension. It was suicide, but it was also hope. The thinnest sliver of it. Voss sighed, then straightened. I'll alert the science team. Prepare for human trials. But, Captain, would be crazy enough to volunteer for this. Rick's answer was calm, fierce. We'll start with me. A silence heavier than gravity settled on the room. Every man and woman present knew what that meant. Rick had given his orders, and no one was going to stop him. Captain, Voss said, voice low, you understand what this means. Even if you survive, you may not be you anymore. Rick's eyes held steady. If I'm going to ask someone to walk into hell, I go first. That's how we've always done it. Voss nodded reluctantly. I'll prepare the containment chamber. But sir, if you become a threat, no hesitation, Rick said. You take me out. An hour later, the medbay had transformed into a high-security lab. Scientists and medics stood around a reinforced glass chamber, their faces pale with tension. At its center, a vial of Occam Dominus shimmered in a containment field, glowing like some malevolent jewel. Rick entered in full combat gear, the weight of history on his shoulders. Captain, said Dr. Keller, head of the science team. We've linked your neural activity to the mainframe. We'll shut it down at the first sign of a takeover. But once it's in you, we may not be able to stop it. Rick nodded. Just make sure you're recording. Keller handed him the vial. The liquid inside churned with unnatural life like it was watching. Taking a final breath, Rick lifted it. Here's to humanity, he muttered. And then he drank. Pain hit like a supernova. Rick collapsed, convulsing. Alarms blared. His body twisted violently, nerves screaming. The Occam Dominus surged through him, probing, burning, rewriting. Voices shouted. Keller, Voss, others, but Rick couldn't hear them. He was in a war of his own now. Then a shift. One of the medics gasped. Look. His vitals there, stabilizing. Keller leaned in, eyes wide. His neural activity, it's leveling out. Directed, controlled. Rick's breathing steadied. The pain subsided. Slowly, impossibly, he rose to his feet. He looked around the room and smiled. I'm still me, he said, but I feel different. Keller was stunned. Captain, it didn't take over, you're controlling it. It tried to dominate me, Rick said. But it couldn't. It's adapting. So am I. The implications were staggering. Humanity had just done the impossible. They had survived the Calvo's most terrifying weapon, and now they could use it. Begin trials, Rick ordered. Select volunteers. Let's turn this thing into an army. They did. Over the following weeks, dozens of soldiers underwent the transformation. Not all survived, but those who did became something new, faster, stronger, enhanced. They were dubbed the Hydro Commandos, an elite force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And when they were ready, Rick stood before them, a living symbol of humanity's unyielding will. We strike now, he said. We take the war to the Calvo, and we end it. Their ship, the Invictus, pierced the Calvo's skies like a blade. The capital lay ahead, sprawling and alien. They hit hard and fast. Hydro Commandos unleashed their power with devastating precision. The Calvo faltered, shocked by this impossible resistance. Rick led the charge into the command center. The Calvo Emperor stood before him, terrified. Your reign ends here, Rick said. One shot, one end. The war was over, and humanity, once on the brink of annihilation, had turned its darkest hour into its greatest triumph. The Occam Dominus, meant to enslave them, had instead made them more than human. Not just survivors, victors.